Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Realeyes The World Podcast. Today, I'm going to cover open-mindedness. And so, this is a continuance of the Enlightening Series in which I bring everybody up to speed, whoever may be interested, on the different aspects of enlightenment or awakening, and then some of the concepts that are, um, I would say, a key role in understanding the world for what it is once you awaken. And so today, with open-mindedness, I want to go over that, and that this is something that we exercise from time to time um, when you're unconscious. And I say that because we as humans are creatures of habit. And so whenever an idea or something new comes your way, um, sometimes we reject those things because they don't conform to what we're used to or what we're accustomed to or what is within our normal routine or habits. And so when you do begin a spiritual journey, um, number one, and I'll say this as somebody who used to be very concrete on having facts and evidence and really building a case for something before it's even plausible. I myself would, if I were somehow able to be me again, um, at some point in my life over a year ago, before I changed my life, I would have never imagined myself doing what I do today, because there's some of the stuff when you start to explore yourself spiritually, they don't things don't make sense in a way that we're used to, like I said, presenting facts, having physical evidence. Some of these things that we experience spiritually are, only observed within. And so when you try to tell somebody about an experience you had within, they can't necessarily take that for fact because they can't put their hand on it. You were the only witness. And on top of that, when you talk about something happening within, a lot of our minds are accustomed to thinking, okay, your organs, your blood, what is within, and not necessarily within yourself spiritually, or your spiritual self, or your spiritual mind. So being open-minded allows you to entertain, and it's not necessarily accepting or rejecting right off the bat any new idea or thing, but you entertain it. Okay, this is something I'm unfamiliar with. Let me hear it out, or let me try it out, whatever it may be, whether it's an idea or something. And so, with the spiritual enlightenment and awakening and all that stuff, for me, I started meditating first. And so this is it. I guess in a way, I when I say I have to see it to believe it, um, once I started meditating, whatever I felt, and which we can't even put words to, um, something changed from that day on where, okay, you know, I, I had, now I didn't try, I tried meditation with an open mind as a solution to my emotional problems that I had at the time. I didn't try with an open mind to, going off and studying Buddhism and reading about Hinduism and Zen and the Tao. Um, I didn't have it. Not That's not to say I set myself up for expectations, but I didn't think I would be where I am today just from meditating. But circling back to the open mind, when we need to be more open-minded to the things we come across daily. And I say that to even say to strip away, looking at things as black and white. One of my old habits was I had to do everything by the manual or whatever the process or instructions were. Even if step one was open the page or open the plastic container, I had to go through that. It was like I had an obsessive compulsive disorder for following things, not necessarily chronologically, but in a process oriented way that's spelt out, even if it says, don't forget to take a breath of air on step 3. um I had shades on to where, okay, black and white, this is a process, this is the way it has to be done, and I would never entertain anything that didn't follow a process or didn't follow the instructions, because it was almost like blasphemy to me. It just it it went against all of what I stood for this persona I created, my ego. Um, and so my job back then actually got easier when I introduced some open-mindedness to what I did as a manager and kind of a checks and balances as work passed through me. I started entertaining things that, okay, this isn't the way I wouldn't have done it, which the work I did was subjective anyways, so that kind of, just saying that now, I'm having a realization, black and white, and the work to begin with was subjective. There was never any black and white. But I brought some open-mindedness into that, and it made my life easier in a sense that I wasn't exercising my obsessive compulsive, and I don't really want to call it a disorder, because I don't want to disrespect anybody that actually has that, versus me talking about a problem I had in the past. But this obsession I had with following things, it kind of went by the wayside. When I was open-minded and allowed things to be, whether they were wrong or done differently, just playing into a bigger picture with an open mind that, okay, to get this out by tomorrow, I can't pick on little things like this. And so, some of these things, even though they aren't the way I would have done them, sound plausible if I look at it with an open mind. And so, I mean, that right there, that was almost a game changer for me, because I went from, and I realize this is a two-way street when I say this, but I went from a stressful job based on the way I looked at it to a not stressful job just based on the way I approached it. Um, Now, I would say the stress was still there, which is why I separated myself from that environment. But it was just a matter of how I was looking at things. And when I was looking at it with an open mind, um, I was looking at things for the present moment. disregarding past experience, past opinions and thoughts of whatever it is, and even future like consequences. If I don't fix this, then I could get in trouble, or just thinking of things like about anxieties of the future, and just looked at it at the present moment. Okay, this needs to be done. I've got this much time. Let things go. And so that whole concept that I just described there, it's living in the present and having an open mind allowed me to integrate that into my work to ease things. Now you could do that with not just work, but anything in your life. And it could be to the smallest thing. For example, if somebody offers you a food you've never tried. Naturally, a lot of us have a menu somewhere in our mind where we hear keywords and we'll automatically be like no or yes to jump on it because it's your favorite, or no because you had a very bad experience one time with, um, let's just say asparagus, you know, versus a chocolate, a cookie or something. I mean, those are for most people, or for, I guess I'm generalizing people here, but a lot of people would jump for the chocolate and turn down the asparagus. Um, but I say, approaching things within your diet with an open mind, you might find foods that you like now because your palate's changed over the years. And so, you may have disregarded a food or avoided it for many years because you had a bad experience in your childhood or at some point during your life. And so now it created a thought pathway in your brain. So whenever you hear something, you don't remember the trauma that you had with that particular food that, is ingrained in your mind unconsciously. But there is a pattern that automatically just says deny, do not entertain this. And so when you create self-awareness, you would realize this, especially when you're practicing being open-minded. And I've had a couple of these instances in my spiritual journey up to this point where, I would catch myself wanting to decline something, just not necessarily wanting, but wanting to reply no before even thinking about it or having a logical reason. It was almost a habitual, like, no, that's not something I would do at all. For example, I've done numerous things with my wife. She goes out and does a lot of things, does family things with the kids, or does some outdoor adventurous type stuff. And a lot of times I used to decline her habitually because it involved leaving the house and doing this and that. And I would just get anxieties about what all's involved and what I'm about to have to do. But, now when she says something, and now that I've worked on it, but initially when I started becoming more open-minded, I would catch a thought that says, no, don't do it. But being open-minded, I'd say, I would sit and kind of ponder on it for a second. And especially when those thoughts would come up, like, why did I just reject that without even thinking? It was almost like instinctive. But after, I caught that, I would think on it a little more, and in some cases, I would remember an event from my previous time in life where I had a bad experience, or I didn't like how something turned out. And so I was completely avoiding it as if, when you get burned, you learn don't touch the candle, don't touch the flame. And obviously that's something you don't want to be open-minded to, uh, without very specific reasons. But things like that, we know better versus, denying ourselves. And especially in my case, I was denying family time and just getting out of the house, which turns out I needed, versus staying at home and playing video games thinking this is what I need to decompress. And I say that in reality, I actually needed to get out to decompress, get into a different environment, get out of the house, etc. And so, being open-minded helped me realize that itself. And so, with open-mindedness, it's so it. I did an episode on acceptance and surrender. It's almost like you are willing. There's a willingness to try. Whether it's a new idea or something new, a new action. It's a willingness to try it, accepting and surrendering yourself to whatever may come from it. You don't expect results based on your previous experience, and you don't anticipate results based on your previous experience. I'm sorry. But what I was getting there, you don't anticipate versus... You don't bring in the past, you don't bring in the future, and that may be based on memory or experience, whatever it is. You don't bring it in because every time you do something, it's totally different. And that's one of the unique things in life is, even though we may have processes to repeat stuff and get the same results, no one time is literally the same. If you think of that on a machining level, a factory that makes a product, every time one product goes through that assembly line, it may look the same and the machine may compensate for any differences in assembling the product. But even the actual assembly machines, that are doing the work, those actually wear out. So, we're talking about maybe microns of wear, but still, no two events are ever the same. Okay, you can get similar results, but there's always going to be there's no scientific control. We can do that in environments, with science experiments in which we do create controls. And so they produce reproducible results, so to say. But again, it's never the same whether, Bill Nye did the experiment versus some other Joe Blow who did the experiment. They might have produced the same results, but two different people carried it out. See, you get what I'm saying? Whether you want to be open-minded to that, is entirely up to you. It really depends on how you look at things, whether you're looking at it from result base, which, yeah, if you do that, then, if I go out to the same bar, I've already went there this week or something, you're expecting the same result. Whereas, in reality, it could be a whole different crowd up there on this night and perhaps a new drink on the menu. You don't know. You got to be open-minded that even though things look the same physically or sound the same, and I can't necessarily say physically, but, orally, that if you've already got the wrong perspective at that point where you need to be open-minded in that, I might have done this 100 times. Let's go again. It really depends on where you're at at that point of your life. when to necessarily entertain open-mindedness and new things. So obviously, if you got to work tomorrow, you're not gonna say, yeah, let's go white water rafting out of the blue, But you could schedule that, okay, I can't go tomorrow because of a prior commitment, but I can go this weekend. And so, I say that for whatever counterpoints may come up, you still got to keep an open mind to even make an argument with the counterpoint. Because if it's timing, you could commit to it in the future. If it, maybe it's an allergy or something. That's, I would actually say that's probably more closer to, touching an open flame, You kind of learn the first time and then you avoid it. But, if a doctor goes through and says, okay, well, we did a new allergy test and you're not allergic to these things anymore. That kind of gives you the ability, okay, let me try it now, versus just mentally blocking something out because you've been allergic all your life. And so this actually, there was a movie I watched recently, Yes Man, with Jim Carrey, and it turned out to be a pretty spiritually heavy material movie. I don't know how to say it. There was a lot of spirituality, more than I thought so, thinking it was just a comedy. But the philosophy that the main character learned was to say yes to everything. And that no was no longer allowed to be in their vocabulary. And so what this ended up doing is putting the character in a lot of situations that he would normally decline, or not find himself involved with at all. And so that kind of reminds me with the open-mindedness, although, you can opt out, not necessarily to say, yeah, just say yes to everything. But just being more open-minded, more willing to entertain new things, or do the same thing with the same people. It if you watch the movie, you would kind of get what I'm saying when you say being open-minded, because then you see, and you can't look at things like this, but in hindsight type deal, he wouldn't have met the girl he loves if he didn't say yes to these things, and da 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 da, to say that you don't really want to look at life like that, because that's actually how a lot of us live right now, is okay, I'm here because I did this. So action A led to B. And so whether you realize that or not, we do that on small scales to big scales with our life, and that we're very results oriented. Okay, I went to college and I was able to get this job. I volunteered for more responsibility at this job. I was able to get this role, or this new position. A lot of what we do is results based, and so when I say you can't look back on your choices and necessarily say, oh, well, thank goodness I did that, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be here. That's kind of like throwing a penny into a wishing well and then trying to retrieve your penny later. It's simply noise, and then to go back. For one, when I'm talking about an old style wishing well, like a water well, you throw a penny down there. For one, it gets pretty dark. You don't know where it lands, right? So all you have is the noise to go off of, whether it hit something or landed. That's what your past is. That it's just the noise. But for you to dump back into the well to try and find your penny, that's when we start saying, oh, well, thank goodness I did that, because I wouldn't be here if I didn't. And then vice versa, you look at things maybe from a negative standpoint. Oh, this would have never happened if I said no or did this differently. You can't live like that. It's it's a it I don't know how we obtain this mindset. I do believe it's passed down socially, culturally, um, even through your own family home, your own kind of subculture. Um, when you look at things that way, it leads you to avoiding open-mindedness, right? Because now you're saying, oh, well, I know the last time I threw my penny in here, I couldn't get it out, so I'm not going to do it again. Um, you know, again, two of the same scenarios never necessarily play out the same way because one, who knows why you went back for your penny, and two, um, you may not need to go back for the penny this time. So it's that's why I say the importance of stripping it out. So and playing with the wishing well to begin with might not be the best thing. That wasn't a very good example, but let's say in a perfect world, a wishing well works 100% efficiently, and so you don't know if this time that you throw your penny, what's gonna happen, and you can't base it on your previous experience. And I say that with a grain of salt, and that experience has a role in what you do, but when it comes to being open-minded, that's where experience kind of gets the blunt end of the stick. Where, especially if you're dealing with confronting things that you had fear with before, or just it could be like overcoming an anxiety, just putting yourself out there to realize that, okay, this wasn't that bad. So I would say, check out that movie, Yes Man, if you haven't. It may add some depth to what I've said here today. And start looking at things in your life with a different perspective, and that, okay, maybe I don't really know what's gonna happen this time. Maybe your same daily routine. Maybe Joe won't get the same cup of coffee today. Don't go into work with an expectation, and really you shouldn't have any expectations, because that's how we set ourselves up for failure. And so when you remove the expectation, all that's left is an open mind. Okay? Because once you get rid of expectations, now you're not worried something's going to go your way. Or you're not worried it's not going to go your way. And that, circling back to, like I said with the other podcast episode on acceptance and surrender, you're surrendering yourself to whatever's going to happen. And so I know in a technology-based world where a lot of us have to have results, and something, whether it's reviews on a product, a lot of us look for something that says, yeah, this is what it is, or this is the best of the best, or this is, yeah, and a lot of us will buy, whether it's mediocre or poor quality based on the price. We'll buy things based on that because there's still a factor of experience playing into it. Um, I will say I've changed my shopping habits some to even buy things that don't have reviews yet. Because now, it's a self-awareness and open-mindedness in my life. I don't know necessarily if I can generalize everything in my life as you get what you paid for. And that I'm open-minded that, hey, I might find a diamond in the rough. I might find that this is actually a pretty good quality product for the price. Um, and I say that I don't even really judge things to that extent anymore, and that it's just kind of weird the way things work out. Where I if it breaks, it breaks, and I take that as experience, and well, that's a whole different subject. So, but yeah, you know, practice being open-minded. You never know what's gonna come out different, especially when you're dealing with bigger moves in your life and taking risks. If you live in fear, you'll never you'll never find out what's on the other side if you were to do something different from your comfort zone today. If you exercise that open-mindedness, hey, this might work. I might feel embarrassed, but this may be $1 million idea, whatever the case is. If you look at it with an open mind, and especially living in the present, you'll realize that whatever is on the end of the results doesn't matter, because whether you succeed or fail, those are both valuable outputs. Number one, if you even attempt, you tried it. Number two, if it works, more power to you, right? Now you're on to the next thing, because as humans, we always have to have a problem to solve. So, once you took the first step, now you're going to find 10 more, and you're going to have more, what's the word? More courage. You're going to be more brave to attempt new things. And if it's a failure to me, although I haven't had any catastrophic failure, is more valuable than success sometimes. The lessons you learn, okay, next time I'll do this differently, or next time you won't even do it. That's where the experience comes in, and then that's how you base your decisions. But again, you got to keep an open mind, because it could have just been you took a shot and your accuracy wasn't on point. So that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, this idea won't work. But maybe next time you need to shoot more straight. But you have to keep an open mind before you make those judgment calls, and try new things, or repeat something expecting different results. All right. So thanks again for listening. If you haven't checked out other episodes of the podcast yet, I've got this whole Enlightening Series going. I think this is the 10th episode. And so I've covered various aspects of enlightenment from the Buddhist standpoint. I've also gone into different concepts, and I guess kind of their real world application, or just relating them to the real world versus theory. And so if you like what you heard today, I got more where that came from, and they're already uploaded. And I plan to do further episodes in the future. So don't forget to subscribe, whatever media you found me on. Those numbers add up. And then even likes and comments. I'd be more than willing to interact with you guys and answer any questions, or just chat about whatever. Okay? So we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you.